Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. My name is Mark Pavlich, away in the Grove, the big sexy, and our special guest today, back by popular demand, everybody, one of my favorite guests of all time, UFC veteran, former bare knuckle heavyweight champion, and now I'm going to say this, guys, mental health advocate.
Yeah.
Alan Belcher on the show.
Well,
thanks for having me back, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure.
Mental, here's the thing about mental health. Whenever people say something about mental health, it's always it's like a negative. Like you'll even hear someone say, use mental health as a negative thing. Like, oh, he's got that. You got to take care of you got to watch your mental health, or, it's like, as opposed to just looking at it as opposed to, compared to physical health, your mental health is something that everyone has. It's like whenever you put that together, mental health,
yeah,
it's already a bad thing. Mental health as opposed to just health in general. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's something that we're not really taught to ever think about. But you got to stay healthy. Healthy.
When I saw your Instagram reel, I was like, I've never seen you do that before. So I've never seen you kind of like speak out about it before in the past. And the part that caught me was when you said you were chosen. Okay, I want to know who chose you.
When I said that I was chosen.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Listen, wait a second now. I got to know, because you said you were chosen. I listened to it about 47 times, and but I kept hearing that you were chosen to do this.
Right.
Now I want to know who you were chosen by.
Oh, well, I was referring to being chosen by God.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going with. Yeah, I mean, it's an innate kind of feeling that you get whenever you're led to do something. You're led to do something. You're chosen to do something, and so here's I've always kind of felt like that. I really like teaching. I really like sharing. One thing that I've really thought about and prayed about a lot is like I asked for just the discernment, if you will. If I want to help people, is that because of my ego, or is that because I'm naturally called to do it? And I think a lot of that struggle with me to fully commit to helping and sharing in that is it's almost like my ego is the thing that's holding me back from doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And because you're you're just doing that, you don't want to look a certain way, or it's just like doubt. It's like a doubt that everyone has. Your doubts start to come in and start getting in your way of what you're really meant to do. And it just took me a while to realize that there's a saying that the tree, there's the fruit from the tree is not for the tree. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The tree itself doesn't really get to enjoy the fruit.
No.
The fruit is for the people that come by and get to pick the fruit, or it falls on the ground and gets it or whatever. So the fruit is like the gift that God gives through you, and it's not always for you. And so even when I'm at my hardest times, you may have, I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with someone, you're talking to a friend, they're having a hard time, and you help somebody else out, and then you get off the phone and you're like, damn, I should tell myself that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And so I guess my point I'm trying to make is that your life, you're never going to be in the perfect situation and happy and just, all these things. That's not what makes you a leader.
No.
That's not what makes you great. It's what you do whenever you are in those hard times and in those struggles, and how you come out of it. And if you can you're still meant to, if you're meant to help people, you're meant to help people even whenever you're struggling with it yourself, so to
100%.
speak.
Yeah, I always find that, like, to be a leader, like, to me, the greatest leaders are the ones that are questioning like you're questioning, because it makes us humble. We're remaining in a place. If when I was a pastor for a lot of years, when I was like trying to raise young people up, I could tell the ones that were leaders and the ones that weren't, and it wasn't what people might think. It was actually their ambition level. And what I mean, I'm talking about the negative ambition, when they're looking for a platform, they're looking to be recognized. That was the issue. The ones that were true leaders are the ones that, like, I don't know, like, I don't feel like why should people listen to me? And they always had this thing kind of going with them, but they grew to be incredible leaders because they always were checking themselves.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point. I've experienced the same thing, you know. My obsession with my own ego. I've always had this thing where I've always, you know, try to keep my ego such in check. It makes me such a humble person. I have to push myself to do certain things, because I always feel like I don't want to be looked at as if I'm trying to get the attention, or I'm trying to
Right. Yep.
you know, look like I'm doing these good things or whatever it is. And, you know, I guess I just finally got to the point now where I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I can, I got enough experience. I can trust.
Do you think it's experience, or you think you've been through the gates of hell so many times that now you're speaking from, and I don't want to get biblical with people, because but I can. But what I'm trying to tell people is, like, usually it's people that have been through the just the bottom of the bottoms, to, like, emotionally, physically, like being tortured as a child, whatever it may be, you know, abuse usually is a big factor of it too. And then all of a sudden you start to get to a point where you're like, you know what, man, I'm not fronting anymore. Like, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to do anything, but I am going to speak about what I really know about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, can you imagine I was at church the other day, and this kid comes up to me and he's telling me about his addiction, right? And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, you know, you probably wouldn't know anything about that." And I was like, in fact, I've been addicted to everything in life at one time or another. You know what I mean? So, and he was like, "You're kidding, Mark." And I go, "No, but I think that's the part about being that way, that you have to truly admit to your, you know, like, how when you say vulnerability, it's vulnerability is a truth. It's like,
Right.
you have to be so truthful that you really almost get sick to yourself, because the stuff that you've been through in your entire life, and it all comes back to you in that one moment in time when you're speaking to that one individual."
Absolutely. Yeah, I do agree. Yes, that is what it's about. Yeah. Once you go through it, yeah, so many times you're just, you finally know that it's your time to give back.
But it's not that anymore, don't you think, though, Alan? It's not like when I heard you say you had a men's group, right?
Mhm.
I love hearing that, because, as Jesse
Yeah.
will attest, we used to have one as well. Every Saturday, meet for coffee, and all of a sudden it was 2 guys, then it was 3 guys, then it was 25 guys, and then all of a sudden we have 25 guys standing around talking about what's going on in their life. And the crazy part was, it's like every guy was looking at each other going, like, why isn't there more of this kind of stuff in the real world? And there's still not. So as you know, when you're talking about it, people were messaging me on Instagram, because I was sharing your video so many times. They're like, "Hey, Mark, do you know of a men's group in Edmonton?" I go, "No, I actually don't." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know of one. And that's the crazy part. But if you and you know what's funny too, a lot of females were messaging me going, "What about female mental health, Mark?" And I said, this is the only time I'm going to tell you that, not that I don't care, but we know about everybody's mental health except for men. And when you said vulnerability, oh my God, we were taught our whole entire lives never to be vulnerable.
That's true.
That was a backhand. That was literally a backhand.
How do you do that as a fighter?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the thing.
Right.
Like, you're talking about things being vulnerable. Well, that's not something you want to bring to the press conference.
No, you really don't. And you know, that's a good point. And I was thinking, when you were getting into vulnerability, I wanted to make a point around that, and how you know, everyone is in a different kind of stage in their life, a stage in, on their journey, if you will. They're at a different point, and that's been a great lesson for me to learn how to meet people at those
Where they're at.
those different, yeah, the different parts of their journey. And a lot of times, I wouldn't say that it's an earlier, lower. I'm not looking down or anything, but sometimes when when you're talking about press conference, you're talking about media, and this is true when we're men and we're dealing with women or our woman, our wife, or whatever. They don't see the world the same way that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So it
Correct.
can be important sometimes to be careful how vulnerable you are. You know, for example, we were taught growing up a lot of times, from the older men and stuff, that not to cry and things. And there is some truth in that. There is a time and a place for it, and that's why I say the men's group is a place where you can go with the men and game plan, and then come back with the right type of energy. That way, because what I'm seeing a lot, I see this a lot. I see some of the guys that I've seen have some of the biggest issues that do have a wife. A lot of their issues at home. I'll um, they're almost hiding everything from the men. They're hiding everything, but
Mm-hmm.
in the home, their wife hears it all,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're talking about all this, and they just, after a while, your wife is strong and she's supportive of you, but after a while, it starts to wear on her,
Hmm.
and she's like, "This guy keeps crying about these other guys and all this stuff. Why don't you talk to these guys about it? Why don't you confront that guy about it? Why don't
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?" So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to have these man-to-man conversations.
Yes.
Totally agree.
And with something that's an issue or whatever, deal with those man to man. And whenever you have things that are bothering you, you need those trusting brothers that you can sit down and say, "Hey, this is what I'm going through with my kids, with my ex, with my financial situation, or whatever." And you always find out that most of the time they've been through something very similar.
Correct.
And
That's
it's just like I was saying in the video, is I keep learning this lesson over and over. And then recently, I had a kind of a low moment or whatever, and I got all the guys together. We do this sweat lodge thing, and I got in there, and I just felt the need to open it up with just what I had been going through, and I talked for a few minutes about that. Instant relief. I was, as soon as I said that I've been battling with some depression, and I can't stress it enough, man. It's you learn these lessons over and over. That's why you have to stay consistent and keep
yeah.
practicing and keep doing this. It never stops. There's always another time to level up.
Can,
You're
can you
always going
can
to
you
have a
guys
low
give
time again.
Can you guys give examples, because we're going to get off this, and I don't want to go away from this. Can you two, because Jesse also is a big advocate with depression and things like that. Can you two give examples, please, to people that watch this show about some of the things that you do to kind of counteract your depression?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so the main thing that I see is, for me, is inside my head is hell, and that you need to get out. You got to get it verbally. That's why you need these men. You don't need to go on Facebook and make these long posts and these videos, and you know what I mean, because you know there are people, they're going to look down on you, and then
Mm-hmm.
whatever type of thing or whatever. Like I say, talk talk to someone, talk about it. That's why therapy is good. That's the,
Mm-hmm.
that's the main thing for me. Is inside my head is the worst place. Life is hard enough. It's a struggle for men, especially driven men that always want to be more.
Correct.
Life is hard enough. Stop making it harder on yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing it to yourself. So one thing that I've really been thinking about a lot lately. So one thing that's really been helping me a lot lately in my prayers and meditations and things is, um, I I want your mind. You may notice that your mind is really overthinking. You have these what you call intrusive thoughts, or your mind is spinning out of control. And what you want is you want this peace and this silence, and that is where that's where your prayer works the best. That's where you can connect to God, and that's where you feel this peace. So different different ways of getting into that, like meditation is one thing, but we'll talk about. I've been recommending meditation for a long time, but I realize that most people don't really realize what you're doing. And the idea is to sit in silence and peace and things, but sometimes you need a way to kind of psychologically trick yourself and to change your point of view. So your point of view normally is inside of that whirlwind and that chaotic, all these thoughts inside your head, and you want to be able to come back and like look at that. So one thing that I always try to practice is thinking, what am I going to think next? What am I going to think? If I sit still and I just try to look and try to listen, what are the thoughts that are going to pop up? And if I do see the thoughts that pop up, that would be proof to me that I didn't want to think that thought. Okay, so this does one thing that shows you that your mind and your brain is creating this stuff without your permission. It's not really you. And the other thing it shows you is now when I say, and it usually works, and a lot of people I've told this to, you think when you're meditating, what am I going to think next? Just wait. Where's the thought? A lot of times nothing comes, and you're waiting, and you're like, wow. My friend Chase, I was telling him about this the other day, and he was like, yeah, it's like when you're a kid and you have the hiccups and you ask your teacher to go get some water because you got the hiccups, and the teacher's like, okay, you had a hiccup for me one time, and then you can go get the water. And then you're like, the hiccups are gone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, you get to that point. And then the other thing is now that I realize that, that I don't, that my mind was in control. And now I'm thinking about what I'm going to think next. Now I can have the idea of what kind of attitude that I want to have. And then I can think about the things that I want to think about, because you're in this whirlwind and you're like, life sucks. It's so hard. And I suck. And whatever the negative thing is. And you can slow your mind down and then get to a point where you don't, the next thought is not coming automatically. So now I can choose what I want to think next.
Yes.
Right. 100%. And that's when I can call in, gratitude and really just whatever kind of positive energy that I want to put in there.
Yeah, I would echo really similar kind of things. My big thing was the spiraling out of control part. And so learning about facts. What are the actual facts? Why do I have to hypothetically build all the worst case scenarios to prepare myself for it? That's a trauma-based response, but really it was doubling back on the facts. No, the fact is the last thing this person said to me that was that they loved me. So why would I, think the opposite? And, really having to go back and ground myself in the facts of something. And then, like you said, because you interrupt the cycle of it, because you interrupt the cyclone, it kind of misses a beat and it gives you a second to breathe. And when you can breathe, then you actually, in your right brain, can actually start to make decisions to work yourself out of it. Now, that took me a long time. I went to lots of therapy to uncover. First of all, was uncovering a mountain of hurt that I didn't know was there. Or maybe I knew, but I just had to put a face on it. And once I understood it, then I could get my head around it. And then that was what happened. So, for me, it's, and again, the other part of it too, is people ask me, it's like, well, then you're better now. Like, whoa. Better.
Right.
Like, this is something that, like, I'm managing this. I've learned how to manage what naturally wants to happen all the time, and try to reprogram my brain to think a different way. But this isn't just a thing where all of a sudden you take the Band-Aid off and everything's fine again. This is a constant work that I've had to do for sure to make sure. And I will say this, over the last year and a half for sure, like you can see, even if there's a couple steps back, it doesn't destroy me like it used to. I can build off that actually quite well now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I've read over my problems used to be more of this, you know, just this hyper mind and a root, you know, kind of like what do you call it when over and over the same type of thinking and
I call it the spiral.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of downward spiral. And
but it's cyclical too, isn't it? Like it keeps like it keeps going around. That's what people don't get. Like it whirls around constantly, and then also sucks you down too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that goes hand in hand with depression. I haven't quite recognized what exactly depression was until actually recently. I think in the last year or so, I've been learning more about like how severe depression be, you know, as I think it has to do with a lot of neurotransmitter type of things, you know, where you just don't have the serotonin and the dopamine and stuff, and you wake up in the morning where you're used to being like, oh, I'm refreshed and I'm ready to go. And it's just not there, you know. And I think those go hand in hand with the thoughts, because you lay there and you're thinking and you can't get out of bed. And that's a great point about being rational, you know, being able to be rational. And I think it's key to realize some of you know, some of the science, I guess, that goes behind like what's going on with your brain and everything is you're in this survival type of, you know, mode, if you will. And in that mode, you're calling in a different part of your brain. It's like an emotional part of your brain.
Absolutely.
And we got to slow that down and be able to think with our conscious mind.
Correct.
That God gave us, and able to think. And I think that's very important.
Can we get to the point now too that any doctor that subscribes any form of medication that says you will have suicidal thoughts if you take this medication, we should slap every doctor that prescribes that to anybody, because I told this story the other day, and Jesse knows it. During the Christmas holidays, I was taking some medication. In my entire life, I have not suffered from one day of depression. Anxiety, I've been sad, yes. Depression, no. For 3 days, I took this medication, and I was looking in my head to jump off of any bridge I could find. I was literally like, I've never had these type of thoughts in my entire life. And then my wife looks on the prescription and she's like, Mark, she threw it away immediately.
Yeah.
I wake up the next morning, no problem. The next day, no problem. I'm like, what happened there? What was that 3 days during Christmas where it was just bananas? And then I thought to myself, I had so much more empathy for my dear friend Jesse and people, because I thought to myself, I've never experienced real depression. It's called sadness. Real depression is a whole different thing, because I literally experienced it for 3 days. And let me tell you something. Pray, and unfortunately, I'm a big prayer, and prayer didn't work for me during that time. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I was like, whoa, this is really weird. Like, I've never thought like this before. And now my wife is like so fanatical, checking every label of everything, because it literally says at the top, you know, you could have suicidal thoughts. And I'm like, what idiot doctor subscribes anything that says you could have suicidal thoughts? It's insane.
No, it really is, man. Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm glad that makes sense what I was saying, where I was like, I really understand what depression is. Something, you know, some of my other things that I experienced up until that wasn't the level of depression that I've that I even recently went through. But I think what can really help out here is that this, like you said, just admitting that and saying it's the medicine that you took basically shut down your serotonin, and
Crazy.
without certain chemicals to drive you and motivate you, you
Crazy.
just feel like a weak piece of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And as a man, it's just like,
Yep.
women always give men hell for not having not being very tough when they have a cold. You know what I'm saying? Or like whatever the little thing is. It's because when we feel weak or injured, in my case recently, my neck was hurting, and your neck's hurt, your whole, you know what I mean? You take off the head, the whole body
You're
can't
done.
do nothing.
Yeah.
So I can't do anything. And my body is thinking, well, you're useless now.
Mm.
You're useless. And that becomes a narrative in every other area of your life. And you have to stay in that conscious mind, and that's why I just, without getting in, like, I try to have people, let's not talk theologically, so to speak, and it's like I or as far as like um trying to prove um theologically or religiously or anything. Like, God is something bigger than that. God is something that you can call to. It's like this. It's this steady thing that is always with you. Timelessness, God, in which everything comes from. And when you can open up and finally start trying to have a relationship with God, that can be your rock.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
It really can, man. It really can. So like when in any of these situations, that's the thing that has to be your rock to kind of get you to that point where you can be rational, so to speak. And
Absolutely.
it seems counterproductive, but it really isn't.
No.
Well, it's my pastor friend of mine said it best one time. He said, well, a lot of people that suffer from anxiety and depression, it's an alone feeling, right? But if you truly believe in God, right, which I apparently all three of us do, he said you're never alone. And it sounded so easy the way he said it. But then I thought to myself, I'm like, he's right. If I really believe in that, if I really believe in God, and I really do, and then I think to myself, why? And I keep reminding myself when I get in that anxiety stage, I go, wait a second, I got God. And I really, it's not like I'm saying it at the end of a speech somewhere. I live that lifestyle. So I literally go to myself and I put that in my head and I'm like, oh my, he's right. I got God. So I immediately calms me now. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I believe in that, but at the same time is, why didn't I just tell myself that my whole life? But it's something so simple that I just remind myself, I got God. And I put that in my head. And I'm like, yeah, there's nothing for me to worry about. I just keep everything cool and easy. But these are these little small little things that you remember, but you have, on occasion, you need people to remind you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And now that we're talking about God too, is that our ego as men it wants us to kind of think that we are all that there is.
Yeah.
And then when we're gone, then the whole, the lights are out, and so to speak. But God is remembering that there's something way bigger than you. You're just a small part, a very
Correct.
small part. And God is the energy that gives you life. It's the thing that's going to be here no matter what. And we're experiencing this right now. And yeah, I think that it's just it's so detrimental. It's so hard to do this with just therapy and like godlessness. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
totally agree. It's
you're
true.
just going to go around and round, around and round in circles. And yeah, sure. Yeah, I have hard times sometimes. Sometimes I get depressed and things like that. But I have these tools. That keep me focused. And even whenever I wake up depressed, I can get myself into that conscious place. My relationship with God is there. I start there, And then I know the reality of what this thing is. This is something happening to my body. This is happening in my brain. And I'm so tough, I'm going to tough it out and until it passes. Until, you know what I mean? Until it passes. And I'm not going to tell all these stories and just, keep beating myself down.
Yeah.
Correct. What are you going to do after fighting? Because are you getting close to that now?
Yes, definitely getting close to that now. I got a contract with GFL to do a couple of fights this year. I mean, I'm making so much money doing it, and I feel like I'm really good at it, and I'm like,
You actually are, right? You actually are good at it.
so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to get as little damage as possible and do a couple fights with the GFL. Have a good. So yeah, I'm definitely looking at the ending.
That came from nowhere, that GFL thing, because I know of the guy that kind of runs it, and he's from Canada, and he was very non-successful in the past in this industry. Yeah. And for him to show up and to do this is bananas. Like when I saw it, I was like, this is so crazy, because like he was very small level in Canada, and then all of a sudden he came back 10 years later, woke up, got some money from somebody to do what he's doing now, because this is bananas. All the people they signed, I was looking at it going, either he won the lottery or someone else won the lottery or someone he knows has a lot of money, and he's convinced that person of, oh, we're going to do this GFL thing, because literally on paper it looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see.
Do you know when your first fight is? Do you know when your first fight is?
April 25th. I'm supposed to be on the first card in LA, April 25th.
Okay, good.
Don't have an opponent or anything yet, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, what I'm gonna do after fighting is kind of marry all this stuff together with MMA and with mentoring and coaching and helping guys out, helping young men out on their path, and I looked for mentors my whole career and had a lot of great people help me out and stuff. And I've always just had that, just that gut instinct that I knew that I needed some type of guidance, and I was always looking for guidance, and I got a lot of great guidance. But I just know how important that is, and I want to be that for other guys. So definitely, as far as the what I'm passionate about, what I want to do afterwards is stay in the fight game, but make a bigger impact than just teaching people how to punch and kick and how to win fights. I feel like you can do more. You can do more than that. And ultimately the thing that makes a great fighter and gives them just the well-rounded career in life, is navigating through their journey as a martial artist.
Sure.
And trying to master themselves and find their own greatness without getting in their own way, and without setting themselves up for failure.
So no more, but okay, I'm back to fighting. No more bare knuckle?
Probably not.
No, but that was fun though for you.
Yeah, it was
different. It was different.
It was my way kind of back into the sport, and it opened my mind to a lot of different things. I learned a lot about it, and as long as if I don't I don't really have interest in doing bare knuckle. They would have to pay me a lot to go back in there and fight, and I would only do it if it was for a world championship for the right amount or something like that.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm kind of looking at doing these two MMA fights with gloves, trying to take as little amount of damage as possible,
Yeah.
and take my money and go on to the next thing.
Yeah. Good.
Well, that's
You
so
know?
cool. Yeah. Well, Alan, I mean, obviously, we could talk about this for weeks, and we will, because we have to. And that's the thing. Like, we're at a thing. It's like, a hashtag ain't gonna cut it anymore. So.
No, you're right, Jesse, because that's what it is now, right? It's like for men, it's once a year at a certain time where it's like, oh, it's men's mental health. And then for the rest of the year, you don't hear nothing. I mean, nothing about it. And that's a problem. And it's a huge problem. And when you were talking on your video feed, when you talked about vulnerability, that's a word where most men go, oh, vulnerability. What are you talking about, man? But it's funny, though. I was getting messages from other MMA fighters, big ones, going, he's 100% correct, because we're here now. You know what I mean? And it's like, we don't got to prove anything to nobody no more, because we've already went through the fire. So we're here now. We got to, this is how it is. Like, like people got to understand, like the strongest men I know have finally shown some form of vulnerability,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a form of courage.
Yeah.
It definitely
it really is. You have to have the courage to do the thing, and it's just like, dealing with your addiction too, it takes courage. It really does. And I, it all goes hand in hand. I think a lot of people see some, these discussions like this, or hear that we're talking about this, and they think, well, I'm not sitting around wanting to kill myself or whatever. That's not me. But it is very real. And I've lost friends to suicide. I've had suicidal thoughts myself. Just like you could take the wrong medicine and you'll be having suicidal thoughts and not even know it. So if you think you're too good for that, that's going to come and bite you in the butt.
Alan, I know more people that have killed themselves than have had cancer. So I know, since I was a kid, more people that have killed themselves than and it starts inside my family, in my like immediate family, to outside of that. My whole entire life, I can add it up, and I know more people that have killed themselves than have died of cancer. I'm not kidding.
Me too.
That's crazy. And you think about that for 1 second, you go, oh, we got this. Oh yeah, it's so good. We do this day once a year for men, and this and that. And when someone tells you this, you're like, wow. But this is where we're at now, and it's not getting better. So when people go, oh, it's so much better now, no, it's not. We're just starting to talk about it now. It's not getting better.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And when I didn't have these tools, and I was more lost, and I was, that's the dangerous part when you're because you do feel like, why am I, you don't even ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? You're in it, and you got to hide it. You have to hide it from everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So learning the reality of the situation, and having these tools, and realizing that it's not a really uncommon thing. They say that something like 40-something% of teenage boys have suicidal thoughts.
Crazy. That's
and you know what I mean? And we could speculate all the reasons why that is and stuff, but I mean, I've came to realize that maybe it's just something normal. It's something normal. I think part of it is the feeling of wanting to not want to be yourself and needing to grow into the next version of yourself. So maybe
you're correct.
You feel like killing yourself because the current version of you isn't working. So you have to die in a way, have the ego death, keep evolving into the next, rebirth, if you will.
Yeah, that's good.
And when you learn how to look at it like that,
it's so true.
You're just like, all right, it's another time when I'm feeling like this. It's another time to kill off some part of me, and then be reborn and go into the next version of myself.
Yeah. Because you see because you see the kids now, right? They're like, between social media, you could sit on Instagram for 8 hours, and that will be the demise of most young men that are sitting there watching it going, oh, I don't have that car. I don't have that house. I don't have those girls. I don't have that jewelry. I don't have that muscles. I don't have this. I don't have that. And they just keep filtering that through their head when they're scrolling through Instagram all day.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's all a joke. It's a big show. Social media. And you have to look at it like that. Keep the reality. You don't have to quit doing social media, but if you are, you have to realize that it's fake. It's a show.
Yeah, watch it. Yeah.
So it's you know what I mean? So keep that in mind. Don't fall for that comparison thing.
100%.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
there's so much with this, but yeah, I think that the laying down of, that feeling of knowing that this version of myself can't go to the next thing, that's tough. That's a tough one. And that I remember feeling that at 12 years old, and people that struggle with that thing all the time, that's exhausting. That is exhausting. And so I remember when I finally told everybody how bad it was, and people were like, I had no idea. And I'm like, well, how could you not? But the other side of it, you put on a face, you put on something, and people don't know. And after, a year or 2, 3, 4, 5 go by, that's just who you are now. And they might think this is just normal Jesse or whoever, but really internally it was hell. So,
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's the thing, but it does take courage. And that's the part that is scary too, because a lot of the time, knowing that feeling and then thinking that people that you really love and trust are going to judge you for that, you're not sure you can handle it in the time. You're not sure you can handle it, so you just avoid all of it. And
that is true.
And that's a part why I think just talking about this more and more and more does help alleviate some of that part where people aren't as shocked as they used to be if you say you're struggling with something.
But you can't.
But they were in my case.
But you can't. But you can't reel it back once you set it out there, Jesse. So that's the struggle, because once you set it out in the world, that's what people are going to tag you with. But that's not who you are. That's not who you are. But that's the anxiety that you're getting ready to tell everybody. Oh, this is what I am. Jesse, you told me one time, we were together in my backyard, drinking a beautiful bottle of tequila together, and you were telling me this, which I had no clue about, but I never tagged you as, oh, there's Jesse, the guy with but other people do. And that's the problem. That's why people don't say it, because once you spit it out into the world, you can't reel it back. So that's the struggle that people have. They can't reel it back once you say it.
It's tough. In a lot of cases when you're doing that, especially when people think that you have it all together. Like I said, I was a leader of a lot of different things, and still am, and all of us are, respectively. But in that time too, it doubles down the problem because, I can't appear imperfect.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Which opens up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that if you're wondering about people out there that have told you that they struggle this way and you're not sure about it, think of those worst case scenarios like that and start to imagine, because I guarantee you that person's at least touched on some of them. And so try to put yourself a little bit in there, because here's 3 guys that tell you, and again, there's lots online that do as well, but we have to get this to a place where we're comfortable talking about it, or creating space with a group of people that you're comfortable talking about it with. You don't have to do it on the internet.
Well, Jesse, you know what? I know 20 people 5 years ago that told me they never suffered from depression, anxiety, PTSD in their entire life. 5 years later, all 5 of them have something, either depression or anxiety or whatever. It hasn't touched you yet. But same with, like I told you, I never suffered for 1 second of depression. Take this medication for 3 days. I'm like, this would be a perfect time to, skydive off a bridge somewhere, because I've never thought that in my entire life. But then it happened. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's, I know so many people that in their life, they say, oh, I never touched them. And then all of a sudden, something catastrophic happens in their life, and then they go into that deep dark hole, and all of a sudden they're clueless at 45 years old or 50 years old how to deal with it.
Alan, before we leave today, like,
Okay.
first we thank you for your time, but why don't you, kind of maybe just give a little thing of like how to help someone, like what you would say to them in this time that they're struggling with.
If someone comes to you and they're struggling,
How do you respond to that?
Well, I would say the main thing that person is probably looking for is that for you to listen with them without judging them. And I had one example of one. I had to get through with this with a friend before, because at one time I wasn't telling anybody what was going on, and I texted my friend and said, "Hey, I'm just struggling with depression right now, and I'm just trying to get through this." And the guy, he laughed and was like, "Well, you're just you're telling yourself some story or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you get out of your head or whatever. That's not real or whatever." The thing was, which was partially true, but that didn't help me. That didn't help me at the time. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, obviously, that is kind of true, but you don't want to tell someone that's struggling like that. It's all in your head.
Yeah, of course.
All that type of thing. You want to relate with them the best you can, and probably the most powerful thing that you could do is not try to teach them or solve the problem, but maybe just tell them something that you've struggled with, and they tell them that you're there for them, and that it's going to get better. You know what I mean? That's the thing. We need to give our friends hope that this is a temporary time right here, and I'll sit here with you, and we'll get through this together if we have to, because it may not be tomorrow or the next day, but the day is coming where you're going to come out of this, and you're going to be feeling, you're not even going to remember what this feels like. You're going to be feeling so great in the future, and that's how I would approach it if I was talking to someone.
Yeah, I love that. I love the thing, because one thing is people, when they hear that, instantly try to offer the solutions for you. And it's like, it took everything in me just to say this, like thinking about the solutions that you're coming up with for me. Just that isn't the answer right now. Like, I needed someone just to listen, and fortunately found it, because that's the thing. Like, you want that. But I understand people that don't feel there is anyone that can listen, and don't even get me started on the cost of therapy, which is going up in where we live in Alberta. April 1st is going up another 10%. So you're like, okay, we know that this is so important, yet it's the least covered thing financially in the medical system.
It's
2% of our healthcare system goes to mental health. 2%. And we know that suicide is one of the leading cause of death in men. And so you're like, 2% of the budget goes to this, and it's one of the leading. You think that there would be something there to figure that out, but that's, again, another show. But this is a really serious topic, obviously, and we, like I said, we could all talk about this a lot. But Alan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable, but in a courageous way, and giving us some insight and some helpful insight for both sides of people struggling and people that want to be there to help someone.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, well, thank you guys. As always, I love getting on your show. If I can ever do anything for you, you guys reach out to me when you're struggling. Anybody listening, I not to drag it out, but I've had a lot of people message me, after that video, obviously, too.
Of course.
And if this helps anybody out, a lot of big names, I want to say 4 or 5 guys that you would recognize their names.
Yes.
In the MMA world that were like, man, that's, I've struggled with the same thing. And it's way more common than you think.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're weak.
Yeah.
I promise you, because I'm not a weak person.
That's right. Well, thanks so much once again. Man, good to see you again.
All right,
We'll hope to see you soon.
Yeah, man.
Take
Talk to you
care, bro.
later.
Take care, bro.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fantastic with Alan Belcher today, former UFC standout, bare knuckle heavyweight champ, and now he's going to have a few more fights to retire. And like I said, it's funny because, people are like, I think it is now, Jesse. I think people are like, oh, I'm so sick of hearing about this, and but it's true, right?
Yeah.
And you know what the funny part is like you're sick of hearing about it, but then you hear men's suicide is up X amount of percentage in the United States and in Canada. And listen, guys, I'm not just talking about men's mental health. We're talking about mental health in general. Like it's a circumference of like multiple things, but it's like, I do love doing shows like this because you see a guy like Alan Belcher, who is literally like, he's a killer. Okay. He literally is. And for him to come on the show and to literally basically tell you like this is what the stuff that he goes through, and listen, I know that you go through it too, Jesse, and literally, like I said, I experienced it for 3 days, and it was awful. Like I'm talking, and that was medically induced. So it's like I literally had to medically induce depression for 3 days, and I was like, this is not right. Like the way my mind was shifting and the way that so I really even have more empathy for people with depression. And I do now know that you just can't go for a walk. You just can't splash cold water on your face, and that's going to be the solution to it. So for all the people that say that, please stop talking like that, because
now
it's not true.
But in the midst of it, no. In the midst of it, it made it worse because you don't have any energy left to do anything. But now I can. Now that I'm like out of that and able to now I can do those things. Just in the time I couldn't. And that's what people need to understand too. If you're like trying to help someone, like, hey, right now they might not be great advice, great ideas, but maybe it's not time yet. Maybe they need some other kind of help first before they can do these other things.
Until they get to that.
And they can get to that. You can encourage them that they'll get there. Let's just keep walking together. Let's keep going on the journey one step at a time. Doesn't matter how big or small your step is, it's still just one step. So take one and see what happens.
Fantastic. Well, thanks to our sponsors, Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Call 310 Glass or go to crystalglass.ca today.
Until next time, everybody. Thank you so much, Alan Belcher, for joining us tonight.
Fantastic.
That's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast. We'll see you next time. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/meandjesse.